Okay. Hello, everybody. Just making sure I'm okay. Perfect. I'm recording. Welcome back. Mm, we are still going to discuss about the first chapter of the Zizek book. We finished the first part. I actually immediately forgot the title of the first part. Yes, freedom versus liberty. And now we are going to talk about the second part of this chapter, which is entitled, which is which title is regulating violations. So we stopped at the famous quote of Jean-Paul Sartre about abstract freedom. We are going to continue following this notion, reading the introduction of this new part of the chapter. So, the embarrassing paradox we are compelled to accept here is that, from the moral standpoint, the most comfortable way to maintain one's high ground is to live in a moderately authoritarian regime. So, rather a provocative statement, but I can guarantee you guys it has its sense. In the sense, sorry, the repetition that Zizek claims that a moral compass is not endangered only in a moderately authoritarian regime. You can protect, control this moral compass. Unlikely when we are talking about democracy, because in democracy, this moral compass is thrown into chaos and people don't really know what to choose, what to desire. In an authoritarian regime, indeed, you can oppose the regime without really posing a threat to it, so you can act supposedly against the regime. You can softly following its implicit rules, which you don't know the counterparts of these rules, the violations, the violated violations. And even if you suffer from disadvantages in this authoritarian regime, moderately, we specify here, minor punishments only provide the aura of the hero. So, still this moral part is kept, is protected, is being, reproduced. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. The full gesture of a democracy politics is to fully admit its disorientation and to assume the responsibility for difficult strategic choices. Indeed, it's precisely when in democracy, we are specifying now, difficult decision must be made that we feel democracy itself is threatened. I don't know, this particular passage reminded me of the COVID period in which we think that I'm Italian, so the way my country acted towards COVID is different probably from the supposed viewer who's giving a look at this video. But there was no vote, there was no discussion whatsoever, and I'm not saying it was bad, because in that time of our life where the pandemic was spreading out, we didn't have time for such a thing. And I think that I will leave this here because it's food for thoughts also for me, how freedom relates to such a period. I'm not talking about quarantine and such a thing, which is also interesting. I'm talking in the transition period between daily life and quarantine, or whatever the hell is called, that's such a term. Let's continue. We stumble upon another paradox of political freedom. we should be very precise with regard to what the majority really wants. What if they don't really want to be free? What if they care more for the appearance of freedom? In a normal democracy, the majority wants to maintain the appearance of freedom and dignity. So the capability of saying, well, yes, I have a say and it matters. It wants the electoral procedure to go on as if they are really making a free choice. But they simultaneously want to be discreetly told what choice to make. So I'm independent, but wait a second, there is something behind my independence. Something which is controlling, which I am allowing to control my decisions. Unconsciously, consciously, however we want to put it, we cannot deny the influence society itself is making into our decision-making process. There are moments when people really have to make a hard choice, are usually perceived as the moments of the crisis of democracy. This is what I was saying before. Between the two extremes of liberty, the law-related form of freedom, and freedom itself, there is a tension between the universality of law and its species, in the sense that particular species function as attempts to formulate the exception to the universal law. And this is rather interesting if we consider the examples that Zizek makes afterwards such a statement. He cites the caliphate, the establishment of a caliphate, which basically enables those who are invested by the caliphate itself to perpetuate and to act the so-called haram, which in the Muslim religion are forbidden actions that are considered under this particular derivation of the universal law. So the law itself, it's maintained, and then we go back in the previous part of the first chapter, is maintained through its exceptions. So the daily life of a Muslim who is following the word of Allah, it's also supported by this obscene dimension. And this is not a personal attack to Muslim culture. This is to be seen as an example of how this mechanism works. Another example is made citing the book The Laws of Manu, in which basically there is prohibition towards the priests. They should not make any trade. But if you see in this universality of the law, you should not make it. As a priest, you cannot make any trade. There are particularities, a particular exception which support this universality, paradoxically contradicting it. So, for example, you cannot trade, but in extremity, however, a priest can engage in trade, but he is not allowed to trade in certain things like sesame seed. If he does it, he can only do it in certain circumstances, and so on and so on. So I guess that I made my point clear. The great lesson is that the true regulating power of the law does not reside in its direct prohibitions, but in the division of not in the division of our acts into permitted and prohibited, but in regulating the very violations of prohibitions. So therefore the name of this part, regulating prohibitions. The whole point of law is to regulate its violations. Without violations, there would have been no need for the law. It's just when we are naively saying, well, You cannot be happy if you're sad. That's another way to put it. I'm provoking. Our social reality here and now is full of the cases of granting exceptions as special favors. Usually those are related with power figures. The higher we go, the more particular exceptions are created against the universal law to maintain it. How, if at all, can we break out of this like so-called axiom, a universal rule with an exception? And he leaves it here. So that's, as I said before, food for thoughts. It's very interesting, in my opinion, the way Zizek looks at reality, the criticism he puts in every little aspect, and the examples, which are provocative, of course, but on point. Let's dive into the part 3, which is freedom, knowledge, and necessity. We're gonna tackle it in another video. It's still part of the chapter 1, but my goal is to separate its part from another so that a better and clearer explanation is given. And also because I noticed that I cannot exceed the 100 words, 100 letters length when I'm making a title. So it's rather difficult for me to put regulating violations and freedom, knowledge, and necessity all together in a single title. So that's another reason why. So see you on the next one, guys, and enjoy. I hope that you're enjoying as well as I am enjoying this book.